Hello, and welcome back. Tonight, we look away from the machines of war and toward the hearts of those who fought it. In the middle of the greatest storm humanity has ever known, there were individuals who chose light over darkness. They were not all generals or kings. Many were ordinary people who found an extraordinary strength within themselves. Their courage was not the absence of fear, but the belief that something else was more important. Before we remember the names that the stars will never forget, if you find peace in these stories of bravery, please like this video and subscribe. Breathe slowly. Honor the past. Let us meet the heroes. Fact 1. The Angel of the Ghetto, Irena Sendler. In the dark streets of the Warsaw Ghetto, a young social worker named Irena Sendler risked her life every day to save the most innocent. She smuggled Jewish children out in toolboxes, ambulances, and even suitcases. To keep their identities safe, she wrote their real names on thin slips of paper and buried them in glass jars under an apple tree in her garden. Even when she was captured and tortured, she never gave up a single secret. After the war, she dug up the jars, hoping to reunite the children with their families. Irena reminds us that even when surrounded by hate, a single person can preserve the seeds of an entire generation. Fact 2. The Medic Without a Weapon, Desmond Doss. On the bloody cliffs of Okinawa, Private Desmond Doss walked into the fire without a single weapon. As a conscientious objector, he refused to carry a gun, believing that life was sacred. During the brutal battle at Hacksaw Ridge, as grenades exploded and bullets flew, Doss stayed behind on the clifftop after his unit retreated. One by one, he dragged 75 wounded men to the edge and lowered them to safety using a rope. Each time, he prayed, "Lord, please help me get just one more." He proved that the greatest strength is not the power to take life, but the selfless courage to save it. Fact 3. The White Mouse, Nancy Wake. The enemy called her the White Mouse because she was impossible to catch. Nancy Wake was a high society woman who became the most decorated female resistance fighter of the war. She parachuted into occupied France, led thousands of guerrilla fighters, and once rode a bicycle for 72 hours through enemy checkpoints to deliver secret codes. She was a master of disguise and a warrior of the shadows. Nancy fought with a fierce, unbreakable spirit, showing the world that bravery has no gender and that the pursuit of freedom can turn a civilian into a force that an entire empire could not stop. Fact 4. The Master of Deception. Juan Pujol Garcia was a double agent known as Garbo who managed to convince the enemy high command that the D-Day landings would happen at Calais instead of Normandy. He created a completely imaginary network of 27 sub-agents, writing hundreds of fake reports that kept enemy divisions away from the real battlefield. His cleverness saved countless Allied lives on the beaches. He is one of the few people in history to receive high honors from both sides of the war, one for his service and the fake one for his loyalty. Fact 5. The Man Who Volunteered for Auschwitz. In an act of unthinkable bravery, Polish officer Witold Pilecki intentionally allowed himself to be captured by the enemy so he could be sent to the Auschwitz concentration camp. His mission was to gather intelligence from the inside and organize a resistance movement among the prisoners. For nearly 3 years, he smuggled out reports detailing the horrors of the camp to the outside world. He eventually escaped in the middle of the night, continuing his fight for a free Poland. His life was a testament to the fact that some people are willing to walk into hell itself to bring a sliver of truth to the light. Fact 6. The Lady Death, Lyudmila Pavlichenko. When the war came to her home, Lyudmila Pavlichenko did not hide. She took up a rifle. She became the most successful female sniper in history, with 309 confirmed kills. But her heroism was not just in her aim, it was in her endurance. She spent days in the frozen mud and scorching heat, perfectly still, waiting for the moment to protect her country. Despite being wounded 4 times, she never faltered. When she visited the United States, she famously told the press that she was tired of being asked about her makeup and clothes while her people were dying. She was a cold wind from the east, a guardian of the soil. Fact 7. The Ghost of the Highlands. Tommy Prince. Tommy Prince was one of Canada's most decorated Indigenous soldiers, a member of the elite Devil's Brigade. He was a master of stealth who could walk through a forest without snapping a single twig. Once, while spying on an enemy position, his telephone wire was cut by a shell. Dressed as a local farmer, he walked out into the field in plain sight of the enemy, pretended to tie his shoelaces while repairing the wire, and then walked back. His calm nerves and expert scouting provided the intelligence needed to destroy enemy artillery. Tommy Prince walked between worlds, using the ancient skills of his ancestors to protect the modern world. Fact 8. The Japanese Schindler. In a quiet consulate in Lithuania, a Japanese diplomat named Chiune Sugihara began to write. Against the direct orders of his own government, he spent 20 hours a day handwriting thousands of transit visas for Jewish refugees fleeing the Holocaust. As the consulate was closing and he was forced to leave on a train, he was still writing visas and throwing them out the window to the desperate crowds on the platform. He saved over 6,000 lives, losing his career and his reputation in the process. When asked why he did it, he simply said that he followed his heart. His pen was mightier than any weapon of war. Fact 9. The Black Bully. On the morning of the attack on Pearl Harbor, Doris Miller was a mess attendant, a role that at the time did not allow him to fire a weapon because of the color of his skin. But as his ship, the USS West Virginia, began to sink under heavy fire, Miller did not hesitate. He carried his wounded captain to safety and then took control of an anti-aircraft machine gun he had never been trained to use. He fired until he ran out of ammunition, defending his shipmates with incredible courage. He became the first African American to be awarded the Navy Cross, proving that heroism knows no barriers and that bravery is the ultimate equalizer. Fact 11. The Star of the Resistance. The world knew her as a famous jazz singer and dancer, but Josephine Baker used her fame as a shield for the French resistance. She smuggled secret military intelligence written in invisible ink on her sheet music and pinned secret photos to her underwear, knowing that no one would dare strip search a global superstar. She used her tours across Europe and North Africa to gather information for the Allies, risking her life in the shadows of the stage lights. Josephine proved that art can be a powerful weapon and that even the most glamorous life can be dedicated to the humblest cause of freedom. Fact 11. The Human Shield. A young British stockbroker named Nicholas Winton was about to go on a skiing holiday, but he changed his mind to go to Prague instead. There, he saw the danger facing Jewish children and organized a massive operation to bring them to safety in Great Britain. He found foster families, raised money, and arranged 8 trains to carry 669 children across enemy territory. He never told anyone about his feat for 50 years, not even his wife. It was only when she found a scrapbook in their attic that the world learned of his quiet heroism. He was a man who saw a tragedy and simply decided to fix it. Fact 12. The Dervish of the Desert, Fazl Din. In the burning heat of Burma, a soldier from the Punjab named Fazl Din showed a bravery that defied death itself. During a fierce hand-to-hand battle, he was run through the chest by an enemy sword. Despite the fatal wound, Fazl-Din pulled the sword out of his own body, killed the man who had stabbed him, and then led his men in a successful charge to capture the enemy position. He refused to fall until the battle was won, finally collapsing only after reporting the victory to his commander. His spirit was an unquenchable fire, a reminder that the will of a warrior can sometimes overcome the limits of the flesh. Fact 13. The Broken Code. Alan Turing. In the quiet rooms of Bletchley Park, a brilliant mathematician named Alan Turing fought a war of the mind. He led the team that cracked the Enigma code, the unbreakable system used by the enemy to send secret messages. By building the world's first modern computer, Turing allowed the Allies to see the enemy's moves before they were even made. Historians estimate that his work shortened the war by at least 2 years and saved over 14 million lives. He was a hero who never fired a gun, but his genius was the silent lightning that struck at the very heart of the enemy's power. Fact 13. The Lion of Senegal. Charles Nchodere. Charles Nchodere was a French commander of African descent who fought with legendary courage during the fall of France. When his unit was finally surrounded and forced to surrender after a brutal defense, the enemy officers tried to separate him from his white soldiers, claiming he was not a real officer because of his skin. Charles refused to move, standing tall and insisting on his rank and the dignity of his men. He was executed on the spot for his defiance. His death was a tragedy, but his final act was a victory of the soul, a refusal to accept the lie of inequality, even at the cost of his life. Fact 15. The One-Armed Warrior. Zia Bunyatov was a heroic commander from Azerbaijan who led a Strafbat, or penal battalion, a unit of men given the most dangerous missions to redeem their honor. In the crossing of the Vistula River, Bunyatov and his men held a bridgehead against overwhelming odds, fighting through heavy artillery and constant attacks. He was known for his fearlessness, often leading from the very front. He survived the war to become a great historian, carrying the scars of battle into the halls of academia. He represented the millions of soldiers from the Caucasus who stood as a wall of iron against the invasion of their lands.
Fact 16. The Silent Flyer. Charles Lindbergh played a secret and dangerous role during the war in the Pacific. As a civilian consultant, he flew 50 combat missions, showing young pilots how to save fuel and increase the range of their fighter planes. He once engaged in a dogfight and shot down an enemy aircraft, all while technically being a non-combatant. He used his legendary knowledge of the air to give the Allied pilots an edge they desperately needed. He was a man of the sky who returned to the cockpit to ensure that the wings of freedom would never be clipped. Fact 17. The Nurse in the Jungle. Vivian Bullwinkle was an Australian Army nurse who survived the unthinkable. After her ship was sunk, she and other nurses were captured on a beach. The enemy ordered the nurses to walk into the ocean and then opened fire from behind. Vivian was struck but pretended to be dead, floating in the water until the soldiers left. She spent 12 days in the jungle, wounded and alone, before being captured again and spending years in a prison camp. She survived to tell the story of her fallen sisters, becoming a voice for the bravery of nurses who face the horrors of war with nothing but bandages and compassion. Fact 18. The Radar Pioneer. Robert Watson Watt was a descendant of the inventor of the steam engine, and he carried that spark of genius into the defense of Britain. He developed the chain-home radar system, an invisible shield of radio waves that could detect enemy planes long before they reached the coast. This technology gave the RAF the eyes they needed to win the Battle of Britain. Without his invention, the small number of Allied pilots would have been blind and overwhelmed. He turned the very air into a warning system, proving that science is the ultimate guardian of a nation's safety. Fact 19. The Forgotten Coder. Hedy Lamarr was the most beautiful woman in the world. The Hollywood actress was also a brilliant inventor. Horrified by the sinking of refugee ships, she co-invented a frequency hopping system that prevented torpedoes from being jammed by the enemy. While the military didn't use her technology until years later, her invention became the foundation for modern Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. She was a hero of the future, a woman whose mind was decades ahead of her time, proving that beauty and brilliance can combine to create a legacy that protects the world long after the guns fall silent.
Fact 20. The Eternal Flame. The Unknown Soldier. The final hero of the war is the one whose name we do not know. In every nation, there are tombs for the unknown soldier, those who fell in distant fields, whose letters never made it home, and whose stories were swallowed by the earth. They represent the collective sacrifice of millions. Their heroism is found in their simple willingness to stand in the line, to share their bread with a comrade, and to face the dawn with courage. They are the foundation of our world. As you sleep tonight, remember that the peace you enjoy was built by names both famous and forgotten. Their flame burns forever in our hearts. Conclusion. The rest of the brave. The battles are over. The heroes are at rest. Their stories are now part of the wind and the stars. As you drift into sleep, let their courage be your strength. Let their sacrifice be your peace. The world is safe tonight because they were brave. Sleep well, for the light they carried still shines.